The fortress station called Bastion 7 floated in the dark space between three dying stars. It was massive, built by 7 different alien species working together. Each section looked different because each species had their own way of building things. The station had one purpose: to be the meeting place for the Galactic Defense Coalition. This was where the war leaders came to make plans against their common enemy. The enemy was called the Void Swarm. Nobody knew where they came from. They just appeared 3 years ago and started destroying everything. They ate planets, consumed stars, and killed every living thing they found. The swarm did not talk. It did not negotiate. It only destroyed. 7 species fought together against the swarm. All of them were predators on their home worlds. The draconids looked like giant lizards with scales harder than steel. The Kashari were cat-like hunters with reflexes faster than thought. The Ursids resembled bears but stood 4 meters tall. The Rapteks were bird-like creatures with talons that could cut through metal. The Thornbacks had shells and spikes covering their bodies. The Fangmaws were wolf-like pack hunters. And then there were the humans. Humans were the newest members of the coalition. They joined the war only 8 months ago. The other species were not sure about humans. Humans were small compared to most warriors. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor plating on their skin. They looked soft and weak. But humans had something else. They had weapons that could destroy moons, and they had a stubbornness that surprised everyone. Lieutenant Kate Morris stood in the observation deck of Bastion 7 and looked out at the stars. She was 32 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was clean and pressed, showing her rank clearly. She had been awake for 20 hours straight, preparing reports for the Emergency War Council that would start in 2 hours. Kate held a data pad in her hands. The screen showed casualty numbers, resource counts, and battle projections. All the numbers were bad. The coalition was losing the war. Slowly but certainly they were losing. "You should rest before the council meeting," a voice said behind her. Kate turned to see Admiral Jake Holland walking toward her. He was 50 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He commanded the entire human fleet in this sector of space. "I cannot rest, sir," Kate said. "The Draconid warlord is going to question our commitment again. I need to have all our data ready to prove we are pulling our weight." Jake nodded slowly. He understood. The other species still did not trust humans completely. They thought humans were too new, too inexperienced, too weak. Every meeting became a test that humans had to pass. "Warlord Krath respects strength," Jake said. "He will listen if we show him facts and results. We have destroyed more swarm ships this month than any other species." "That is because we take more risks," Kate replied. "We lose more ships too. The Kashari Huntmaster Vera keeps pointing that out. She says we are reckless." "Let her say it," Jake answered with a slight smile. "Reckless wins battles. Careful just delays defeat." Before Kate could respond, her communication device beeped urgently. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. The message was short but terrible. Swarm scouts attacked colony ship Sanctuary. Heavy damage, civilian casualties, requesting immediate evacuation support. Kate's hands started shaking. She read the message again, hoping she had misunderstood. But the words did not change. "What is it?" Jake asked, seeing her expression. "The Sanctuary," Kate whispered. "It was attacked." Jake's face became very serious. The Sanctuary was a human colony ship. It carried 5,000 civilians, mostly families of military personnel. They were traveling to a safer system, away from the war zone. The ship was supposed to be far from any fighting. "How bad?" Jake asked quietly. Kate scrolled through the detailed report that came after the first message. Life support damaged in 3 sections. Medical bay destroyed. They are counting the wounded now. Hundreds injured. Some deaths. Her voice cracked on the last word. Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "Your children are on that ship," Kate nodded. She could not speak. Her twins, Amy and Ben, were 4 years old. They were on the Sanctuary with other military families, supposed to be safe while Kate did her duty at the War Council. She had kissed them goodbye 2 weeks ago, promising to see them soon. "Go," Jake said firmly. "Take a shuttle. Get to the Sanctuary. Help with the evacuation." Kate looked up at him. "But the War Council starts in 2 hours. You need me there. I have all the tactical data, all the reports." "Commander Paul Dixon can present the reports," Jake said. "Your children need you more than we need another officer at a table." Kate wanted to go. Every part of her wanted to run to the shuttle bay right now. But she also knew what it would mean. The other species would see it as proof that humans were not serious warriors. They would say humans put their personal feelings above their duty. They would say humans were weak. If I leave now, Warlord Krath will use it against us, Kate said. He will say humans abandon their posts. He will say we cannot be trusted. Jake's expression was hard. I know, but you are a mother before you are a soldier. Go to your children. Sir, we need the coalition to respect us, Kate argued. We need them to see us as equals. If I run away from the council, you will not be running away, Jake interrupted. You will be saving lives. There is no shame in that. Kate's communication device beeped again. Another message from the sanctuary. This one was from Dr. Henry Webb, the ship's chief medical officer. Kate read it and felt her heart break. They found 30 children separated from their parents, she said quietly. Some are orphans now. The medical staff is overwhelmed. They need help organizing evacuation of the youngest ones. Life support in the children's section will fail in 6 hours. Jake closed his eyes. 6 hours. The council will last at least 4 hours. You cannot do both, Kate made her decision. I have to go to them. I know, Jake said. I will make your excuses to the council. I will take the blame for your absence. They will crucify you, Kate said. Probably, Jake agreed. But I would do the same thing if my children were in danger. Any parent would. Kate transferred all her data files to Commander Dixon. She sent a quick message explaining the situation. Then she ran to the shuttle bay. Her military training told her she was making a terrible mistake. Her heart told her it was the only choice. The shuttle trip took 90 minutes. Every minute felt like an hour. Kate sat in the pilot's seat, pushing the small craft as fast as it could go. She kept thinking about Amy and Ben. Were they scared? Were they hurt? Were they still alive? When she finally docked with the sanctuary, the scene inside was chaos. The colony ship's corridors were filled with smoke and emergency lights. People ran everywhere, some carrying wounded, some looking for lost family members. The air smelled like burnt metal and fear. Kate found Dr. Webb in what used to be a common area. Now it was a makeshift medical station. Injured people lay on the floor because there were not enough beds. Medical staff moved between them, doing what they could with limited supplies. Dr. Webb, Kate called out. The doctor turned. He was a thin man with gray hair and blood on his coat. His eyes showed the exhaustion of someone who had been fighting death for hours and losing too many battles. Lieutenant Morris, he said, thank God you are here. We need every hand we can get, my children, Kate said. Amy and Ben, are they? They are fine, Dr. Webb said quickly. They are with the other children in Section C. They are scared but not hurt. Kate felt relief wash over her. They were alive. They were safe. For now. But we have a problem, Dr. Webb continued. The life support system in Section C is failing. We need to evacuate those children in the next few hours, but we do not have enough staff. Everyone is dealing with the critical injuries. We cannot spare anyone to properly care for 30 frightened children during an evacuation. Kate looked around at the chaos. She understood the problem. Moving 30 young children through a damaged ship required supervision. They needed adults to keep them calm, to keep them together, to make sure none of them wandered into dangerous areas. But every adult on the ship was already doing something critical. What about the parents? Kate asked. 10 children have no parents anymore, Dr. Webb said quietly. Another 12 have parents who are injured or missing. The rest have parents who are helping with repairs or medical care. We cannot pull those people away. The ship will die if we do, Kate thought fast. When does the War Council end? I do not know, Dr. Webb said. Why? An idea formed in Kate's mind. It was probably a terrible idea. It would definitely get her in trouble, but she could not see any other option. The council is on Bastion 7, Kate said. That is only 90 minutes away by shuttle. There are emergency shelters there, safe places for civilians. Dr. Webb shook his head. You cannot bring children to a military station during a war council. That violates every protocol. The coalition leaders would never allow it. They do not need to allow it, Kate said. They just need to not stop me. By the time anyone realizes what happened, the children will already be safe. You will be court-martialed, Dr. Webb warned. Maybe, Kate said. But the children will be alive. She made her decision. She would take the children back to Bastion 7. She would bring them to the safest place she could reach in time, if that place happened to be a military fortress in the middle. Kate stood in Section C of the damaged colony ship and looked at the 30 children gathered in front of her. They ranged in age from 3 to 6 years old. Most of them were crying. Some sat quietly with blank expressions on their faces, too shocked to cry. All of them were scared. Her own twins, Amy and Ben, held onto her hands tightly. Amy had dark hair like Kate, pulled into two messy pigtails. Ben had lighter hair and his father's green eyes. Both of them had tear-stained faces. "Listen to me carefully," Kate said to all the children in her calmest voice. "We are going to take a trip on a shuttle. It will be like a spaceship ride. We need to stay together and be very brave. Can you do that?" Some of the children nodded. Others just stared at her. A little girl with red hair raised her hand. "Where is my mommy?" Kate's heart hurt. She knew this child's mother was in the medical bay, badly injured. Dr. Webb had told her the woman might not survive. "Your mommy is getting help from the doctors," Kate said gently. "Right now we need to get you somewhere safe." "What is your name?" "Sophie," the girl said in a small voice. "That is a beautiful name," Kate said. "Sophie, I need you to be very brave and help me take care of the younger children. Can you do that?" Sophie nodded slowly. Giving her a job, a purpose, helped. Kate knew that from her military training. People handled fear better when they had something to focus on. Kate found two other staff members who could help. One was a young engineer named Carlos who had minor injuries but could still walk. The other was Mia, a teacher who had been on the ship to start a school in the new colony. Together they started moving the children toward the shuttle bay. The journey through the damaged ship was difficult. Some corridors were blocked by debris. Others had no lights, only the dim glow of emergency systems. The children were tired and scared. Several of them could not walk the whole way. Kate ended up carrying Amy while holding Ben's hand. Carlos carried a 3-year-old boy named Tyler. Mia helped guide the older children around obstacles. They passed through areas where repair crews worked desperately to fix critical systems. The crews barely looked up as the group of children walked by. Everyone was too focused on their own tasks, racing against time to save the ship. When they finally reached the shuttle bay, Kate saw her shuttle waiting where she had docked it. The small craft was designed to carry 12 people comfortably. She was about to load 30 children plus 3 adults into it. "This will be tight," Carlos said, looking at the shuttle. "We will make it work," Kate replied. She had no other choice. They secured the children as best they could. The older ones sat in the actual seats with safety harnesses. The younger ones sat on laps or on the floor with makeshift restraints. It was not safe by any standard regulation, but leaving them on a dying ship was worse. Kate did a final count. 30 children, all present. Carlos and Mia were secured. She climbed into the pilot's seat and started the launch sequence. "Sanctuary Control, this is Shuttle 7 requesting departure clearance," she said into the communication system. There was a pause, then a tired voice responded. "Shuttle 7, we show you over capacity. Please reduce passenger load before departure." "Negative, Control," Kate said. "These are Section C evacuees. Life support failure imminent. I am departing now." "Shuttle 7, you do not have clearance." Kate cut off the communication and launched. The shuttle pulled away from the sanctuary and accelerated into open space. Behind her, she could hear some of the children crying. Others were very quiet, which worried her more. The flight to Bastion 7 would take 90 minutes. Kate set the autopilot and turned to check on the children. Most of them looked terrified. Space travel was new to many of them, and the tight conditions made everything worse. "Let me tell you all a story," Mia said in a cheerful voice. She was trying to distract them. "Once upon a time there was a brave little star that got lost in the darkness." Some of the children listened to the story. Others dozed off, exhausted from the trauma and fear. Kate watched them all, her mind racing through what would happen when she arrived at Bastion 7. The War Council would have already started. All 7 species leaders would be in the Grand Chamber, discussing strategy and arguing about resources. Kate was supposed to be there presenting human battle data. Instead, she was flying a shuttle full of children toward a military fortress. She pulled up the station's layout on her screen. Where could she take 30 children? There were emergency shelters, but they were far from the council chamber. It would take too much time to get the children there, make sure they were safe, and then get back to the meeting. Time she did not have. An alarm beeped. Kate checked the display. One of the children's oxygen levels was dropping. The air recycling system in the overcrowded shuttle was struggling to keep up. "We need to get there faster," she muttered. She pushed the engines harder, squeezing more speed from the small craft. The shuttle shook slightly from the strain. "Is everything okay?" Carlos asked nervously. "We are fine," Kate lied. Just a little turbulence, but she knew they were not fine. They were in an overloaded shuttle with failing life support, heading toward a military station where she had no authorization to bring civilians. And even if they got there safely, she would have to explain to 7 different alien warlords why she brought children to their war council. Kate thought about Admiral Jake Holland. He had told her to go to her children. He had supported her decision, but he probably expected her to stay on the sanctuary or take the children to a nearby civilian station. He did not expect her to bring them to the most important military meeting in the galaxy. This was her decision. Her responsibility. If it went wrong, she would face the consequences alone. Bastion 7 appeared ahead of them, growing larger on the viewing screen. The massive station looked like a metal city floating in space. Kate requested docking clearance with the station's control center. "Shuttle 7, please state your purpose," the controller said. It was a rap tech, judging by the chirping accent in its voice. "Delivering urgent medical evacuees from the sanctuary," Kate said. It was technically true. "You are cleared for Bay 17. Medical teams will meet you there." Kate changed course slightly. Bay 17 was far from the council chamber. But if she went there first, she would never make it to the council in time. The meeting would end. Decisions would be made without human input, and all her data would be useless. She made another choice. She aimed for Bay 4 instead. Bay 4 was closest to the council chamber. "Shuttle 7, you are off course," the controller said. "Correct to Bay 17. "Negative, Control," Kate said. "Bay 4 has faster medical access." Another lie. She was getting good at those. "Shuttle 7, Bay 4 is reserved for VIP." Kate switched off the communication. She was already in too much trouble. A little more would not matter. The shuttle glided into Bay 4 and landed with a soft thump. When the doors opened, Kate saw confused dock workers staring at them. They had expected important military officers, not a crowd of children. "We need to move," Kate said to Carlos and Mia. "Help me get everyone out." They started unloading the children. It was slow work. The younger ones needed to be carried. The older ones could walk but needed guidance. Station security would arrive soon, asking questions Kate did not want to answer. "Stay close to me," Kate told all the children. "We are going on another walk. It will not be long." She checked her data pad. The council chamber was 5 minutes away at a normal walking pace. With 30 tired children, it would take at least 15 minutes. The council meeting had been running for 3 hours already. It could end at any moment. Kate picked up Amy and took Ben's hand. Carlos lifted Tyler. Mia herded the other children into a rough group. They started moving through the station's corridors. The hallways of Bastion 7 were huge. They were built to accommodate species much larger than humans. The Draconids and Ursids needed high ceilings and wide spaces. Kate felt very small walking through them with a group of even smaller children. They passed several surprise station workers. A Thornback soldier stopped and stared at them with all 3 of its eyes. A Kashari officer's ears flattened against its head in confusion. Nobody tried to stop them, probably because nobody could understand what they were seeing. Why would anyone bring children to a military fortress? Kate heard the War Council chamber before she saw it. Loud voices echoed through the corridor. Someone was shouting in the growling language of the Draconids. Someone else responded in the chirping speech of the Raptex. The translation devices made everything sound angry. The chamber doors stood ahead, guarded by soldiers from each species. They saw Kate approaching with the children, and their expressions showed complete confusion. "I am Lieutenant Kate Morris, Human Delegation," Kate said in her most official voice. "I am here for the council meeting." A Fangma guard growled something. The translation came through Kate's earpiece. "The human delegation is already inside, and you cannot bring younglings into the War Council. I have critical updates that must be delivered immediately," Kate said. She kept walking forward. The children followed her, a small parade of exhausted, frightened younglings. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. This situation was not covered in any protocol they knew. The War Council chamber was the largest room Kate had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high that shadows gathered in the corners. The walls were covered with displays showing star maps, battle reports, and fleet positions. 7 massive chairs sat around the circular table, each one designed for a different species. The Draconid chair looked like a throne made of metal and stone. The Ursid chair was carved from a single piece of dark wood. The human chair was smallest, but still large enough to make Kate feel tiny. All conversation stopped when the doors opened. 7 sets of alien eyes turned to look at Kate standing in the doorway. Behind her, 30 children huddled together, staring at the enormous predator warriors with wide, frightened eyes. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The silence felt heavy, like the air before a storm. Warlord Krath was the first to react. He stood up slowly from his chair. He was massive, even for a draconid. His scales were deep red with black markings across his face. His eyes were yellow with vertical slits. When he opened his mouth, Kate could see rows of sharp teeth designed for tearing meat. "What is this?" Krath said. His voice was deep and rumbling like thunder in a cave. The translation device in Kate's ear made his words sound angry, but she suspected he sounded even angrier in his native language. Kate straightened her back and walked forward.
She carried Amy on her hip.
Ben held her other hand. The rest of the children followed behind her in a nervous group, with Carlos and Mia helping to guide them. "I am Lieutenant Kate Morris," she said. Her voice did not shake even though her heart was pounding. "I apologize for my late arrival. I have the updated battle reports from the human fleet." Admiral Jake Holland stared at her with an expression of complete shock. His mouth was actually hanging open slightly. Kate had never seen him look so surprised. Huntmaster Vera stood up from her chair. The Kashari was covered in short golden fur with black stripes. Her ears were flat against her head, showing her displeasure. "You bring cubs to a war council? This is an insult. This mocks our traditions." "I bring critical information," Kate replied calmly. She moved toward the human chair at the table. The children followed her like ducklings following their mother. A Raptech commander spread his wing arms in agitation. His feathers ruffled and made a rustling sound. "This cannot be allowed. Remove the younglings immediately." But nobody moved to remove them. The guards had not followed Kate into the chamber. They stood at the door, confused and uncertain. This situation had never happened before in the entire history of the coalition. Kate reached the human chair and set Amy down in it gently. The little girl looked very small in the large seat. Ben stood next to his sister, holding her hand. The other children clustered around Kate, staying close to the only familiar adult in a room full of giant alien predators. "As I was saying," Kate continued, pulling out her data pad, "the human fleet destroyed 17 swarm vessels in the past week. We lost 3 of our own ships, but the trade was favorable. We have identified a weakness in the swarm's formation patterns." Warlord Krath growled, a sound so deep Kate felt it in her chest. "You dare present military reports while surrounded by helpless offspring? Have you no honor? No sense of proper conduct?" Kate met his yellow eyes without flinching. "I have reports that may save thousands of lives. Would you prefer I delayed those reports while arranging childcare?" The Thornback general, whose name was Craigish, spoke up. His voice came through heavy armor plating, making it sound hollow. "In any civilized species, young are left in safe dens during war planning. What you do here shows either supreme arrogance or complete ignorance of proper behavior." "It shows necessity," Kate said. She brought up the holographic display and started showing the tactical data. Battle formations appeared in the air above the table, rotating slowly. "The swarm is changing its approach patterns. They are testing our response times in different sectors." But nobody was looking at the data. Everyone was staring at the children. Young Sophie, the red-haired girl whose mother was injured on the sanctuary, was crying softly. Tyler, the 3-year-old boy, had fallen asleep standing up, leaning against Carlos's leg. Several other children were sitting on the floor, too tired to stand anymore. Amy tugged on Kate's uniform jacket. "Mommy," she said in a small voice that carried clearly in the huge chamber. "I am scared of the big lizard." Complete silence fell over the room. Warlord Krath, the most feared warrior in the coalition, had just been called a big lizard by a 4-year-old human child. Kate bent down to Amy's level. "It is okay to be scared," she said gently. "But Warlord Krath is here to protect us from the real monsters. He fights the void swarm so children like you can be safe." She said it loud enough for everyone to hear. It was both an explanation to her daughter and a reminder to the council of what they were actually fighting for. Krath stared at the small human child. His expression was unreadable to Kate. Draconid emotions did not translate well across species. "Why are they here?" asked Elder Tusk, the Ursid representative. His voice was calmer than the others, more curious than angry. He was old, with gray fur and scars across his face from decades of fighting. Explain yourself, human. This is unprecedented. Kate straightened up. She kept one hand on Amy's shoulder. The colony ship Sanctuary was attacked by swarm scouts 6 hours ago. Life support was damaged. These children had to be evacuated. There was no time to find other arrangements. I brought them to the safest location within reach. A military fortress is not safe for younglings, Huntmaster Vera said sharply. You should have found a civilian station. The nearest civilian station is 4 hours away, Kate replied. Section C life support would have failed in 6 hours. The math was simple. Admiral Holland finally found his voice. Lieutenant Morris, you were ordered to attend this council. You should have sent the children with someone else. There was no one else, sir, Kate said. Every adult on the Sanctuary is needed for repairs or medical care. If I had sent the children with a civilian crew, they would have had no protection if they encountered more swarm scouts. I am a trained military officer. I could defend them if necessary. She did not mention that a single officer with a sidearm would be useless against swarm ships. Everyone in the room knew that, but they also understood her point. She had made a choice between bad options. You bring weapons into our sacred space? Growled a Fangmaw pack leader named Rathok. His fur bristled with aggression. Armed, you stand before the council with vulnerable offspring at your feet. This suggests threat. This suggests I am a soldier doing my duty, Kate interrupted. She was tired of the accusations. I was ordered to be at this council. I was needed to evacuate children. I did both. If that offends your traditions, I apologize. But I will not apologize for saving lives. Ben started crying. The long day, the fear, the exhaustion had finally overwhelmed him. He wrapped his arms around Kate's leg and sobbed. Kate reached down and picked him up, settling him on her other hip. Now she was holding both her children. She looked ridiculous, she knew. A military officer trying to give a tactical presentation while carrying 2 crying 4-year-olds. But she did not put them down. The swarm weakness I mentioned, she continued as if nothing had happened, appears in their eastern flank formations. If we coordinate attacks from multiple directions, how can you speak of war while comforting offspring? Krigesh interrupted. His tone was not angry anymore. It sounded genuinely confused. How can your mind focus on battle while your arms hold younglings? Because they need both, Kate said simply. They need me to hold them and make them feel safe. And they need me to fight the enemy that threatens them. I cannot separate those duties. They are the same duty. That statement seemed to confuse the alien warriors even more. They looked at each other, their expressions varying from anger to bewilderment. Huntmaster Vera's ears twitched forward slightly. In proper species, a warrior leaves their young in protected dens. They go to war knowing their offspring are safe behind them, guarded by other adults. This allows the warrior to focus completely on battle. You cannot fight effectively while protecting vulnerable young. This is basic survival logic, is it? Kate asked. She adjusted Amy's position on her hip. The little girl had stopped crying and was now watching the alien warriors with cautious interest. Humans evolved differently than you. We have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no armor. We are not ambush predators like Keshari or pack hunters like Fangmaws. We survived by being persistent. We chased our prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. We could not afford safe dens because we moved constantly. She paused to let that sink in. Our young could not defend themselves at all. So we carried them with us. Always. We learned to run while carrying infants. We learned to fight while protecting children. We became what we are because we never had the luxury of leaving our vulnerable behind. Elder Tusk leaned forward in his massive chair. His dark eyes studied Kate carefully. You say you fight while protecting. But how can this be effective? A warrior must be free to move, to strike, to retreat if necessary. Younglings limit all of these options. They do, Kate agreed. But they also give us something you might not understand. They give us a reason that is physically present. When I fight, the War Council chamber remained absolutely silent. Everyone watched as Warlord Krath, the most powerful warrior in the Draconid Empire, lowered his head toward the small human child standing before him. It was not a bow of submission. It was something else. Something the other species recognized from their own cultures. It was the gesture a predator makes when acknowledging something vulnerable that it chooses not to harm. Sophie reached out her tiny hand and touched Krath's scaled snout. The Draconid warlord went completely still, his yellow eyes focused on the child's face. For a moment that felt like an eternity, the fierce warrior and the small girl simply looked at each other. "You're not scary up close," Sophie said. "You have kind eyes." Kate held her breath. Nobody moved. One wrong reaction from Krath could end very badly. But the warlord did something no one expected. He made a low rumbling sound deep in his chest. The translation device struggled with it, finally settling on something like protective acknowledgement in the readout. It was a sound Draconid parents made to their hatchlings. Sophie smiled and patted his snout once more, then walked back to Kate. Krath straightened up slowly. His expression had changed. He looked at Kate differently now, and then his gaze swept across all the children in the chamber. "I begin to understand," he said quietly. His voice had lost its edge of anger. "You did not bring these younglings here as insult. You brought them because you had no choice that would keep them safe, and you stayed with them because to abandon them would be unthinkable." "Yes," Kate said simply. Elder Tusk stood up from his chair. The old Ursid moved with careful dignity as he walked around the table. He stopped in front of Kate and looked down at her and the children. "In our culture," Tusk said slowly, "there is a word. It translates poorly to other languages. The closest meaning is Den Guardian. It is the highest honor we give. It is reserved for those who protect the helpless when all others have failed, who stand between death and the vulnerable, who would rather die than abandon their duty." He reached into his fur and pulled out a small badge made of bone and metal. "I have carried this my entire life. It belonged to my mother and her mother before her. Each generation passes it to the next worthy guardian." The old warrior bent down and pinned the badge to Kate's uniform. Right above her heart, "I name you Den Guardian. Kate Morris of Earth. You have shown courage we did not know existed. You fight not despite your youngling's presence, but because of it. This is a strength we never imagined." Kate's eyes stung with tears. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Huntmaster Vera was still standing, but her posture had changed. Her ears were no longer flat with anger. They pointed forward with what might have been respect or perhaps confusion. "I do not understand," Vera said. "We Kashari are fierce warriors. We train from youth to be perfect hunters, but we leave our kits in protected creches when we go to battle. How can you possibly fight effectively while burdened with younglings?" "They are not a burden," Kate said, finding her voice again. "They are the reason we fight. Every human soldier knows that somewhere behind them, vulnerable children exist who need protection. But we also know that behind us might not be safe enough. The Void Swarm does not care about your safe zones or protected creches. They destroy everything." She shifted Amy to a more comfortable position. "So we learned to fight differently. We learned to fight while protecting. We learned to make split-second decisions about tactics while also making split-second decisions about keeping children safe. It makes us seem reckless to you. But to us it is the only way that makes sense." Rathhawk, the Fangmaw pack leader, growled softly. "But surely this divides your attention. Surely this makes you weaker in combat." "Does it?" Kate challenged. She pulled up her datapad and displayed statistics. "Human ships have the highest combat effectiveness rating in the Coalition. We have destroyed more swarm vessels per capita than any other species. We have the lowest retreat rate and the highest mission success rate." The numbers hung in the holographic display for everyone to see. They were undeniable. "You also have the highest casualty rate," Kragish pointed out. "We do," Kate admitted, "because we take risks you will not take. We push into situations you would retreat from. We hold positions you would abandon. Not because we are suicidal, but because we know what happens if we retreat. The enemy moves forward, and the vulnerable things we are protecting come one step closer to danger." She pulled up a map of the current battle lines. Last month, the Thornback fleet abandoned Station Gamma 7, when swarm forces outnumbered them 3-1. That was the tactically correct decision, but there was a civilian mining colony 4 hours behind that station. By the time they evacuated, the swarm had already arrived. 800 miners died. Kragesh's armor plates shifted with discomfort. He remembered that incident. 2 weeks ago, Kate continued, human ships held Station Theta-12 against 5-1 odds. We lost 2 destroyers and a cruiser, but we held long enough for the civilian transports to escape. Not one civilian died. "You lost 3 military ships," Vera said. "That is not a victory." It is to the 5,000 civilians who lived, Kate replied. Ships can be rebuilt. Those people cannot be replaced. Their children cannot be replaced. She looked around at all the alien faces watching her. You separate your young from your warriors. You think this makes you stronger because your warriors can focus completely on battle. But it also means your warriors can retreat, can make tactical withdrawals, can preserve their forces for future engagements. Because the thing they are protecting is far away and abstract. Kate hugged her children closer. Humans cannot do that. When we fight with everything we have. Because we are not protecting an idea or a distant homeland. We are protecting this. She gestured to all the children in the room, flesh and blood.
Right here.
Right now, fragile and precious and irreplaceable. Ben had stopped crying. He was listening to his mother speak. Not understanding all the words, but understanding the tone. Amy was almost asleep on Kate's shoulder. Admiral Holland stood up from his chair. His face showed a mixture of pride and concern. Lieutenant Morris, what you have done today will have consequences. Bringing civilians to a war council, disobeying docking protocols, commandeering restricted shuttle bays. I know, sir, Kate said. I accept full responsibility. I request that no punishment fall on Carlos or Mia. She nodded toward the two civilians who had helped her. They were following my orders. I am not talking about punishment, Holland said. He smiled slightly. I am talking about the fact that you have just taught 7 alien species something about humans that I have been trying to explain for 8 months. You have shown them what makes us different. He turned to address the full council. Humans are not fearless. We are not stronger than you. We do not have better weapons or superior tactics. What we have is this: we fight with our hearts exposed. We put what we love most in direct danger, and then we fight like demons to protect it. You call it reckless. We call it being human. Warlord Krath nodded slowly. We called you weak because you seemed to care too much. We thought your emotional attachments were a flaw. We could not understand why you risked so much for individuals when the larger war demanded cold calculation. But now I see, he continued. Your emotional attachments are not weakness. They are your weapon. They make you fight harder than any species I have ever encountered. You do not fight because you are ordered to. You fight because you have something right there in your arms that you would die to protect. Elder Tusk spoke again, his old voice carrying wisdom. In all the predator species we have a sacred law. We do not bring our young to war. We leave them in the safest place possible, far from danger. We thought this was the only logical choice. He gestured at the children, some standing, some sitting, all tired and scared but safe. But humans had no safe places. You are not apex predators. You are prey that learned to fight back. You never had the luxury of a guaranteed safe den, so you learned to create safety wherever you stood. You learned to fight while protecting. You became warriors not despite your vulnerability, but because of it. Tyler woke up from his standing sleep and started crying. The sound echoed through the large chamber. Carlos tried to comfort him, but the boy was too tired and too frightened. Kate walked over and knelt down. She still held her own children, but she made eye contact with Tyler. Hey, brave boy, she said softly. It is okay. You are safe now. See all these warriors? They are here to protect you. Tyler looked at her with tear-filled eyes. I want my daddy. I know, Kate said gently. Your daddy is on a ship fighting the bad things. He is fighting so you can be safe. And when he comes back, he will be so proud of how brave you were today. It was a small moment, a simple comfort given to a frightened child, but every warrior in that room watched it happen. They saw Kate Morris, military officer and tactical analyst, putting aside battle reports to wipe a child's tears. They saw her treating this small moment with the same importance as war strategy. That is what I do not understand, Farah said quietly. How do you switch between warrior and caregiver so easily? How do you hold a child in one moment and make lethal combat decisions in the next? The silence in the War Council chamber stretched for a long moment. Kate stood with her children in her arms, surrounded by 30 tired younglings and 7 species of alien warriors. She had said her piece. Now she waited to see what would happen next. Warlord Krath was the first to move. The massive Draconid walked slowly around the table until he stood directly in front of Kate. His shadow fell over her like a mountain. His yellow eyes stared down at the small human female and the even smaller children she carried. Then he did something that nobody expected. He placed his clawed hand over his chest in the Draconid gesture of honor, and he bowed his head. Not a small nod. A full bow where his snout almost touched the floor. I have fought for 60 years, Krath said, his voice deep and solemn. I have led armies across 100 worlds. I have never retreated from battle. I have killed more enemies than I can count, and I thought I understood what it meant to be a warrior. He raised his head and looked at Kate with an expression that might have been respect. I was wrong. Warriors like me fight because we are strong. We fight because we can, but you fight because you must. You carry your vulnerable young into danger not because you are foolish, but because there is no safe place to leave them. You have no guaranteed den, no protected creche, no sanctuary that the enemy cannot reach. He stepped back and his voice grew louder, addressing the entire council. We called humans weak. We questioned their commitment. We mocked their emotional attachments. We were fools. Humans are the strongest warriors I have ever encountered, because they fight with everything they love exposed to danger. They do not have the luxury of safe distance. They bring their hearts to battle and fight anyway. Elder Tusk stood up from his chair again. The old Ursid moved to stand beside Krath. He too placed his massive paw over his chest and bowed his head. In all my years, Tusk said, I have never seen such courage. We Ursids pride ourselves on our strength, on our ferocity in battle. But we always know our cubs are safe in deep dens, protected by other adults. We can focus on fighting because we have that security. Humans have no such security. They fight while protecting. They are warriors and guardians at the same time, never able to separate those duties. One by one, the other warriors stood. Huntmaster Vera approached, her feline grace making no sound on the chamber floor. She looked at Kate for a long moment, her amber eyes studying the human female with new understanding. I called you reckless, Vera said quietly. I said you took unnecessary risks. I did not understand that for humans there are no safe choices. Every option carries danger. So you choose the option that keeps the vulnerable close, where you can protect them directly. This is not recklessness. This is wisdom born from a different kind of evolution. She placed her paw over her heart and bowed her head. The fur along her spine stood up slightly, a Kashari sign of deep respect. Rathok, Kragish, and the others followed. All the warriors, representing 7 different species and 7 different military traditions, bowed their heads to a human lieutenant carrying children. Admiral Holland watched with tears in his eyes. He had been trying for months to make these alien warriors understand humans. Kate had done it in less than an hour simply by being herself. Kate felt overwhelmed. She had expected punishment, court-martial dishonor. Instead, she was receiving the highest respect these warriors could give. Her arms tightened around Amy and Ben. I do not deserve this, Kate said quietly. I just did what any parent would do, what any human would do. That is exactly why you deserve it, Elder Tusk replied. You see your actions as ordinary. To us, they are extraordinary. You have shown us a truth we needed to see. Warlord Krath nodded. We have been fighting the Void Swarm with traditional tactics. We retreat when outnumbered. We preserve our forces for future battles. We make logical decisions based on mathematical advantage, and we have been slowly losing. He gestured at the star map still displayed on the holographic screens. But humans fight differently. You hold impossible positions. You refuse to retreat even when logic says you should. You take risks that should be suicidal. And somehow you win more than you lose. Now I understand why. You are not just fighting to defeat an enemy. You are fighting to protect something precious that is right there with you. The stakes are immediate and personal. We should learn from this, said Kragesh. The Thornback general's voice carried through his armor with new conviction. We should adopt human tactics. Not just their weapons or their formations, but their philosophy. We should fight as if everything we love is right behind us, vulnerable and exposed. We should fight, Vera added, as if retreat is not an option, because for humans it truly is not. They have nowhere to retreat to that the swarm cannot eventually reach. The warriors began discussing new strategies, new approaches. Kate listened as they transformed the entire coalition's military doctrine based on what she had shown them. They talked about aggressive defense, about holding positions that seemed untenable, about fighting with desperation tempered by tactical skill. But Kate's attention was divided. Tyler was crying again. Sophie looked like she might faint from exhaustion. Several other children had simply sat down on the floor and refused to move. They had been through too much today. Excuse me, Kate said, interrupting the tactical discussion. These children need rest, food, and medical attention. Is there somewhere on the station where they can be cared for? Admiral Holland immediately nodded. Of course. I will arrange for proper quarters and medical staff. I will assign my personal medical team, Krath said. They will have the best care the Draconid Empire can provide. My quarters have soft sleeping areas, Tusk offered. Ursid younglings like warm dark spaces. Perhaps human young do as well? All the warriors were suddenly focused on the children's needs. These fierce predators who had spent hours debating battle tactics and casualty rates now competed to offer comfort to the small humans. Kate felt a smile touch her lips despite her exhaustion. Thank you, all of you. As medical staff and caregivers arrived to help with the children, Kate finally set Amy and Ben down. Her arms ached from carrying them for so long. The twins did not want to let go at first, but eventually they allowed a kind Ursid medic to lead them toward sleeping quarters. Sophie walked over to Kate before leaving. The little red-haired girl looked up with serious eyes. Are you going to stay with us? I have to stay here and finish the meeting, Kate said gently. But I promise you are safe. These warriors will protect you, and I will come check on you as soon as I can. Sophie nodded slowly. Then she hugged Kate tightly and whispered, Thank you for saving us. Kate watched all 30 children leave the chamber with their temporary caregivers. She felt empty without them, like a part of herself had just walked away. But she also felt proud. They were alive. They were safe. Everything else had been worth it for that. When the chamber doors closed behind the last child, Kate turned back to the council table. She expected to finally present her tactical reports, to get back to the military business that had supposedly brought her here. Instead, she found all 7 species leaders still standing, still watching her. What you did today, Admiral Holland said slowly, will change this war, not because you brought new weapons or new intelligence, but because you showed our allies who humans really are. You showed them why we fight the way we do. Warlord Krath nodded. I am calling an emergency session of the Draconid War Council. I will propose a full strategic revision based on human combat philosophy. We will call it the Den Guardian Doctrine. The Kashari will do the same, Vera said. Our warriors need to learn to fight with their hearts exposed as humans do. All species should learn this, Tusk agreed. The Coalition has been fighting as 7 separate armies with different strategies. We should be one army with one strategy. Protect the vulnerable, hold the line, and never retreat while those we love still need us. Over the next hour, the War Council made more progress than they had in the previous 6 months. New battle plans were drawn. New fleet formations were proposed. New supply lines were established. Everything centered around the idea that had driven Kate to bring children to a war council. Protect the defenseless, no matter the cost. As the meeting finally concluded, Kate felt exhaustion wash over her. She had been awake for more than 30 hours. She had flown a damaged shuttle, evacuated children, defied orders, and accidentally revolutionized Coalition military strategy. All she wanted now was to sleep. But first, she needed to check on the children. She found them in a converted recreation area that the Ursids had transformed into a temporary nursery. Soft materials covered the floor. The lights were dimmed. Medical monitors beeped quietly in the corners. 30 children slept peacefully, some in actual beds, others in piles of blankets, all of them finally safe and resting. Amy and Ben were curled up together in one corner. Kate knelt beside them and gently brushed hair from their faces. They did not wake. They were too deeply asleep, their small bodies recovering from the day's trauma. They are strong younglings, a deep voice said behind her. Kate turned to see Elder Tusk standing in the doorway. The massive Ursid somehow managed to move quietly despite his size. They are just children, Kate said softly. They should not have to be.